So we're recording at this point. All right, so we'll go. What I want to do today is talk about report writing. Give you some basics here. I want you to think about a few things. So keep in mind your report is a group grade and accounts for 15% of your final grade. The presentation itself then will count for 10% of your final grade, and both of those are essentially group grades with rare exception. Continue to get your PPRs into me. Right? We don't have questions about those. If you get them in on time, you get full credit. If you get them in late, normally it's a half point if they're as long as you get them in. And so yeah, so report writing. A little bit about report writing today. Now, first and foremost, anytime you're putting together some kind of communication, first question should always be, who is this intended for? Who's my audience? What is the goal of the communication, basically? What expectation can you have on your audience? For your reports, you can assume I'm your primary audience. For your presentation, it'll be myself. It'll probably be some other faculty members from the engineering and science division here. There, from time to time, I've got some colleagues and some former students that are engineers in the area, whether they're at Tinker or some of the companies around it. From time to time, a few of them may come as well. So what you can assume for your audience for both communications is that you're dealing with individuals that have got an advanced degree in a STEM field, some science, technology, engineering, or math field. So either master's or a PhD. What that means for you, you can be technical if you need to be. Assume that you can be technical if you need to be. I would also suggest to you most of your audience are going to be professional educators in these areas. So if you're intentionally technical when you don't need to be, you're going to be more impressive to us if you can be simple and straightforward and minimize how technical you are. You're not going to impress us with your ability to be technical, I guess what I would suggest. At least in general, you won't. You'll probably impress us in your ability to not be technical unless you need to. All that to say, if you need to be technical, if you need to communicate technical information, you can. You can. Just only if needed. Does that make sense? Questions there? So, yes.
Technical like specs.
Yeah, so specifications would be fine. Presentation probably a little less technical. The report definitely, right? An idea of how would somebody rebuild or design if needed would be helpful. You wouldn't necessarily yeah, hopefully that helps. Yes, specifications are fine to put in there, obviously. I don't have a good example off the top of my head where I've seen somebody was just way too. I have seen in presentations where somebody did a demonstration like of how they built a very specific component and consumed a lot of time in the presentation of how a particular component was fabricated. And that was kind of an overkill situation.
So you not be too technical. Let's don't dive way too deep into this.
There's that as well. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Other questions? Not a problem. A good example here is I pulled this one out of another text. I give the citation here in a second. Let's say we've got Sam the plumber writing to the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, and he's asking about using hydrochloric acid in drain pipes. And Sam's heard that it's really good at dissolving organic material, right? And that's true. It's what I would suggest. I don't know why Sam would write to the National Institutes of Science and Technology, but or Standards and Technology, but he does. And let's say if they write this back, you guys understand this is in effect, right? Probably with I mean, I know some plumbers, fantastic people. Some of them are actually educated, but it's not necessarily a requirement for them. They're not going to have an advanced degree in chemistry. know your audience. I know your audience. Again, straight and to the point, sometimes just as effective, right? This is true. This is true. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. And again, if you need to be this technical with me for something, you can be. But straight and to the point, again, I can tell you in the presentation that will probably be as impressive for your audience as needlessly technical, for example. Okay. So, how do we put the report together? I'll put this on the board here. Okay. So put together some kind of a title page. Put together some kind of a title page. And then you'll have, we're going to talk about these headings just a little bit. And again, you don't have to follow my outline exactly. But if you follow it, you're going to hit on all the things that I'm going to grade you on. If you look in Canvas and you look at the documents for the final projects, there is a section in there where it talks about roughly how I'm going to grade your reports. And so if you look at this outline, if you kind of follow this template, you'll hit all of the things that I'm going to be looking for and asking you for when I grade your report. Right, so some kind of a title page. Let's put together an executive summary. Right, we'll talk about what these are in just a little bit here. An introduction, background, alternative design alternatives, evaluation of alternatives, if you will. Discuss your final design. References area. Works cited, if you will. And then you're probably going to have some appendices. By definition, the appendices are not required. If you have really technical information, a lot of specifications, those in appendices in an appendix. It's a good place for those. All right, so let's talk a little bit about these as we go through. Okay. Actually, before we talk about those, what I'd like to do is show you a few things in Microsoft Word. You can use Google Docs if you like, and you should be able to find similar functionality there. But there are built-in headings, right? There's some built-in headings that you can use, some styles that you can use in just about any word processing software. So let's talk a little bit about this. And if you've had training in this or you've used these before, that's okay. I just find not everybody's had a lot of formal training in word processing. So let's talk just a little bit about this here, right? So I'm in Microsoft Word here in the Home tab. You see this big area here for what's called styles, right? And you see there's there's a heading 1 here, and there's a heading 2, and if you dig, right, I think there's a down arrow over here, and you can dig, and there's going to be more headings built in there. But normally heading 1 and 2 is sufficient. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say that I'm going to change it to heading 1. I'm going to turn show all characters on for you. And so here we're going to have executive summary. Okay. Now notice what happens when I hit enter to go to the next line. Look up here in the styles area. When I hit enter, go to the next line, it changes that text on the next line back to normal. Right? And so your executive summary is going to be a simple summary of the entire report. And then I'm going to type text to simulate a paragraph. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste that. So obviously don't write your paragraphs this way, right? But just so we pretend now I've got two paragraphs, right? You actually will write paragraphs here. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the next section. So we've got an executive summary there. Next section, if you'll put one of these headings on it, and then I can say that this is the introduction. The introduction basically is going to be the problem statement in your own words. And I've still got copied my sentence, my fake sentence here to simulate a paragraph. Okay. And then what we got next? We got background. Right, so we get heading 1. Background, which is going to be old ideas, existing knowledge, and then paragraph or 3. Okay. And then let me put just a little more on here. So we got a few paragraphs. Okay. Now, so here's a big gripe of mine is that you'll have some instructors that will tell you every heading needs to start on its own brand new page, right? That's not the standard. I don't buy into that philosophy. You ever read a novel or a book or something, and there's like 2 sentences at the top of the page, and then the next chapter starts on a brand new page. It's like, why do you have all this white space here? Right? That's the idea of that every section needs to start on its own brand new page, and I don't buy into that. But this is my philosophy. If you get to where you finish a section and you get down to the bottom of the page, and you're like, I don't know if I could get another heading and a good solid paragraph at the bottom of the page. That's my rule. Can I get the next heading and a good solid paragraph at the bottom of the page? If I can't, I'm going to go to the next page. Right? You can just hit enter until it gives you a new page. That's a brute force way of getting it done. There's a more elegant way. If you'll hit Control Enter, where you go to insert breaks, you can select a page break. Right? So Control Enter will insert a page break automatically, and you can see that's a hidden character, right? And over time I've gotten used to working with show all characters on. I know if you're not used to it, it's annoying at first, but if you start using some of the more advanced stuff built into Word, like even simple stuff like page breaks, with that. Right? So you can't see the page break unless you turn show all characters on. And if you're editing a document where somebody else worked on it and it's doing weird stuff, turn that show all characters on and see if there's something you can't see that's controlling the document, like a page break, for example. Okay. So again, because I can't quite get a whole section well started down here at the bottom of this page, I'm going to go to the next page. All right. So the next topic then would be Alt and head 1. Keep typing before I grab the head. Alternative designs. Right, so we introduce this concept here, and then maybe we talk about the different designs. So here I'm going to do a heading 2. Right, here on heading 2, we'll talk about alternative A, for example. And we talk about alternative A, maybe a little bit about it. And then I'll do another heading 2, and here we'll talk about alternative B. We'll talk about this. And I don't know how many alternatives you want to talk about, how many good ideas you kind of kicked around. And then you can just kind of continue the report from there. So you can kind of zoom. If I zoom way out, we look at this, right? Very quickly, I've got kind of this nice, organized, professional looking report. I can tell you building websites in something like WordPress, for us as instructors working at Canvas, when we're building things, we also have headings in those. So it's not just unique to Word. This is what I'm trying to tell you. This concept of making headings to organize a large amount of text. A is good for the reader. B, it's really good if you've got somebody like with that's visually impaired and they've got a reader to go through and read it for them. having it broken up like this, those readers normally pick up on that. But something that's really powerful, I think this functionality exists in the Google alternative, but I know it exists in Word. If you go to the very beginning of this and I hit enter, control enter, right? So I make a page break at the very beginning, right? In fact, you could do two here, right? We'll do two. We'll do one blank page here, and this now becomes the title page. Right, title page, ENGR 1213, cool picture, right, et cetera, et cetera. Your title page, you put what you want on it, right? But make your title page, have fun with it, put the relevant information. What did you have a cool group name? Engineering 1213, Intro to Engineering, Spring 2022, whatever the case may be. And then, so I've got another blank page here. What I can do on this blank page, actually just do normal text. You can go to references, I think it is. Yeah, under references is where it's right now. There's a table of contents option. Right, and so you can see some pre-built ones here. I'm just gonna click on this one. And notice what it does. It automatically goes through, and everywhere I've used those pre-built in heading 1, 2, and 3, it automatically grabs those, tells me what page number those are on, inserts on those on there. And I would suggest putting this in at the end once you got your report done. It's kind of a finishing touch thing. But you can put it in throughout. You can always right click in here and you get the option to update it. So if these page numbers change, if I add a bunch of information and these page numbers are no longer valid, you can always update those. They make nice little hyperlinks. I think if you hold, so if you hold control and click on one of those, it automatically takes you to that section. So if I've got a big 40-page document I'm working between multiple people, that's a nice way of getting you from one point to the other. Questions there? Try to go quickly, but hopefully that's helpful to you. If you want some help with more technical stuff, like, hey, Steve, how do I get this to be, if I don't want this page 3, I actually want page 1 to be where the executive summary is. That's doable. We'll use some section breaks and build that out. Come see me if you want to do stuff like that, or probably find good information on the internet at this point too. Okay, but all right, let's talk about these sections real quick. So that's some basics, some ideas on how to format your reports. And again, that should translate in multiple word processing platforms. Let's talk about these different headings that I'm suggesting to you in the outline. I'm proposing. Do an executive summary of some kind. And if you're familiar with the idea of an abstract, I don't know how many of you are familiar with an abstract. It's the same idea there. It's basically if we went and looked up what is an executive summary, right? Tell Google to find executive summary, whatever search engine you like. You're going to get a variety of. It's not like a concrete agreed upon. This is always what an executive summary is. But the common theme that you'll normally find within definitions of an executive summary is that it is a quick summary of the entire report. The idea is that an executive, a suit, if you will, a vice president, that maybe is not your vice president, it's somebody that's not directly over you, could pick up your report, look at it, get just enough information to understand what you're doing, and make a determination as to whether they need to read more of that report to get more information. Is this going to impact the people in my area? Is this going to cost money out of my budget? So an executive, a high-level executive, could pick up your summary, read it, and make a decision if they need more information. It needs to be non-technical, simple, straightforward. Assume it's a very broad audience for it. In this previous slide I mentioned here, okay, no, actually it's here. Quick summary of the entire report. It goes at the beginning of your report. You probably want to write it last. I know very few people that can summarize their entire report before the report is written. Does that make sense? If I'm going to summarize my report, I probably want to write my report first. So this is one place where you could probably copy paste type text to simulate a paragraph and add it there until you've got your entire report written, then go back and write your executive summary. It goes first. it's probably the last thing you'll write. Okay. I've seen it very effectively put on the title page, and that's actually a very convenient thing to do. Again, the intention is somebody can pick up your report, just read your executive summary, and determine if they need to read the rest of it. So putting it on the title page is not a bad thing. If you don't put it on the title page, just make sure it's the first thing within the report that somebody sees. It could come after a table of contents too, if you want. What else? Introduction. Remember we talked about, as a group, come up with your problem statement. What is it that you as a group agree you want to accomplish? That's your introduction at this point. That's the primary focus of your introductions. What is it that you as a group were trying to accomplish? You're welcome to include information out of the final projects document, but I wouldn't. It should not be a copy paste of all of the rules from the final project document. If you want to cite specific ones, that's okay. But it really needs to be what were you guys trying to do in your report? Then what's next? So as we've talked about many times, engineering is the application of existing knowledge. We'll talk about the existing knowledge that exists out there that you learned about in terms of motors, hooking up motors, building basic circuits, building structures, picking up golf balls, whatever background knowledge you went out and got. Where did your inspirations come from? What ideas did you look at and consider? Yeah, what existing knowledge did you not have going into this that you put together for this project? Most of your, if you're going to have citations, if you're going to have references, and I expect you probably have a few, most of those are going to be cited in this section. Doesn't mean you can't cite references in other sections. This is going to be the primary spot where most of the citations will come in. So again, we've talked about the design process a lot. We talked about problem definition. That's basically your introduction to problem definition. We talked about research. That's basically your background section. Here we get into your synthesis, your alternative designs, your design possibilities, as it's titled here. The tomato, there's two different ways of saying the same thing. What were some of the basic ideas that you as a group came up with? And here's kind of where you don't have to be real technical in this section, just a broad overview of what exactly the ideas entailed. We had a catapult idea, and here's kind of how we envisioned creating that. And then we had an elevator idea, we had an auger idea, whatever the case may be. So what were some of the main ideas you came up with? How did you envision incorporating them? What were some strengths of them? Now, a lot of times, and I've very effectively seen a lot of groups will combine these sections. Can be combined. Right? If you want to do them separately, you enter in the alternative designs or design possibilities section. You just introduce the ideas and briefly describe them. And then again, if you want to do them separately, then when you do evaluation, then you actually go through and explain the pros and cons, why you chose, why this was not the idea you pursued in the final design. One of these should be your final design, right? You don't have to go into detail about your final design in these sections because you're going to do that here. But one of the ideas should be either your final design or one of the predecessors of your final design. Maybe one of your alternatives got modified and altered slightly, and then that's the final design. That's a perfectly good way of doing that. Again, you're welcome to combine these sections and do them together. I see that very commonly. That's if I'm writing one of these type of reports, that's normally what I would do myself. Here's the design, here's the pros and cons. This is ultimately what I would move forward with. And then talk about your final design. So again, your final design should show up, or at least a predecessor of it should show up in here. You don't have to go into detail here because here's where you're going to go into detail. What is your final design? What are the components? A cost, at least a total cost estimate within this section. If it's simple, if it's just a couple of components, Feel free to put a complete, cost table, budget table in your report here in the final design section. If you've got like multiple components and lots of, we paid this amount for an entire spool wire and we only used 1% of it, so this is the actual amount that goes against our budget. In detailed calculations, you can put in an appendix later. If you use an appendix, just be sure and refer to it somewhere in your report. Somewhere that's relevant in your report, say, refer to Appendix A for more details on the cost analysis, or whatever the case may be. Okay. So anytime you've got an appendix, be sure it's referred to in the text somewhere. Yeah, so again, it's a simple cost analysis, simple budget. Feel free to put that here. Details, if it's real complicated, spreadsheet details, put that in. But again, final design section. What is it that you either, if you don't have it finalized yet, still, what is it that you're envisioning bringing the day of the race, right? Or if you got it finalized and built, you explain it in detail what it is and how it works. How does it not work? What are the ways it's, what are the safe practices and not safe practices? All right, and then again, references, whatever they've taught you in your English composition classes will be just fine for reference style. APA, MLA reference styles are just fine. If you want to go look up like the American Society of Mechanical Engineers or Society of Agricultural Biological Engineers, Institute of Electrical Engineers, and see what citation style they suggest for their journal articles, it's normally Old Chicago or one of these others, and they're all kind of derivatives of each other. Again, use a style that you're comfortable with for both your references, your parenthetical documentation within the reports, as well as how you structure your references, the works cited at the end. In general, you guys did pretty good on those on the reports you've done throughout the semester. So most likely somebody in your group will have pretty good expertise in this. If you need help, please come see me. Seriously, I'm happy to help you with that. But in general, it's like you guys are doing pretty well with that. And then again, just briefly, appendices by definition, an appendix is not necessary, so to speak. But think about kind of like the textbooks that you got where they've got an appendix in the back. It's probably like large tables of information that you don't necessarily need when you're reading that chapter in the book, but it's helpful information to have. Same thing here. It's stuff that I don't necessarily need to see immediately in order to understand what you're explaining to me. But if I want more detail, I can go look at your appendix. If you've got, and feel by all means, put pictures in your report. If somebody's got a really cool drawing in their notebook of alternative A or alternative B, feel free to put a picture of that in your report. Please do. I've got squirrel brain where pictures help me stay on task. So please feel free to put images in your report. If you've got like 30 pictures of your final design and they're all awesome and you want to show them all off, probably put 2 in the text and refer to Appendix B for more detailed pictures, right? Probably not 30 of the same thing in there. Feel free to put them in there. That's, again, just pick your best couple and then put the rest of them in the appendix. Okay. Questions, comments, complaints? We're all expert report writers. Ready to go now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. I will take that as a win. I'm going to stop recording here, and again, this will be available for you guys if you need to review. Okay, because I know that you may sleep a little bit between now and the report. And this way, it's for future courses. Any of you that go on to take graphics with me, this will be relevant for there as well.